back, and we back. Zeus P, Tank Jew. Let the light in, man. It's the 2-hour lunch break, dog. I'm locked in. So turn your speakers up a notch and grab the white gin. And when I'm on the road to the office or the crib, it's Big Zeus, Ain't Jew, the ones I wanna hear. This is that 2-hour lunch break, live from Lady Bird J. Late. Coming to you live, putting on for they see. This is that 2-hour lunch break, live from Lady Bird J. Late.
And it's coming home to Texas. It's coming home all the way to Austin, Texas, baby.
And we are back with another edition of the 2-Hour Lunch Break podcast, a podcast from Austin for Austin, shared with you around the world. Mm-hmm. We're here in East Austin, ATX, Dawa Studios. I am Saint, one half of the 2-Hour Lunch Break, and I've got my trusty co-host.
Zeus.
And we've got some great guests in the building for you today. We are honored with two remarkable guests that have made significant contributions to the field of literature, education, and media. The first guest, I am thrilled to welcome Dr. Rosalind Oliphant.
Rosalind Oliphant.
Oliphant. Thank you.
Rosalind Oliphant, yes.
First, we're thrilled to welcome Dr. Rosalind Oliphant, the founder and director of Austin African American Book Festival, which is now in its 18th year. Dr. Oliphant is a longtime entrepreneur and educator with a deep passion of fostering literacy and community engagement. She is dedicated in her career in promoting African American literature and has hosted numerous literary events, author talks, and also reading camps of youth. The festival, held in George Washington Carver Library and Museum, has grown to become highly anticipated for community events, engagements of hundreds of festival goers each year.
So, and our second guest is Dr. Mark D. Cunningham, a professor in radio, television, and film at Austin Community College. Dr. Cunningham received his PhD from the University of Texas at Austin and has made significant contributions to film and media studies. His research includes topics such as John Singleton's and Spike Lee's films, and he is currently working on a book about race, gender, and narrative in John Singleton's trilogy of films about South Central Los Angeles. Dr. Cunningham is also actively engaged in community discussions and has presented at numerous conferences. How are the both of y'all today?
Doing well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We really do appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day, spending some time with us to have this conversation.
Yep.
So the first question we wanted to ask is, what inspired you to create the African American Book Festival back in 2006?
All right. So in 1992, I opened a small specialty book kiosk in Highland Mall.
Oh, wow.
Folk Tales Book Company. And we did so well in Highland Mall. Of course, ACC Highland is there now, but we did so well in Highland Mall that we were able to get a location. And we were located at 18th and Nueces. So if you know where Tiff's Treats is, that's where our location was.
Okay.
And we were there for many years, and we sold books by and about African Americans. It got really difficult. Entrepreneurship, having a brick and mortar store, it just got really difficult. And then with all the competition, there was like a renaissance during the 90s with Terry McMillan's books and so many other authors. Terry McMillan had done a great service to authors, and her books were selling, and publishers were publishing other African American authors. And so it was a really wonderful time for booksellers. So then Target and Walmart and all these other businesses got in, and it became really difficult to maintain a decent profit margin. So I made the difficult decision to close the store, always, in my mind about pivoting to something else.
Right.
And fast forward to 2006, after really looking and seeing different things, I decided that a book festival would really be good for this community. And the inspiration came from the Harlem Book Fair.
Okay.
That's beautiful.
Gotcha. So I'm curious, right? So you have a background as a bookseller and also an educator, right? So
yes.
With that said, how do those experiences in both of those fields, how did that influence the vision behind the festival?
Well, so when I made the difficult decision to close the bookstore in 1999, you know, the whole entrepreneurship, the challenges of entrepreneurship, I decided that I needed to get into the workforce. And, you know, my husband and I had a young son, and I realized that I needed to be more of a contributor to, I mean, I was contributing some as an entrepreneur, but not nearly as much as I felt like I wanted to, so that my son wouldn't have to go without. And it wouldn't just be just like this real struggle, continual struggle for my husband, who is a very hard worker, but I needed to do my part. And so both of my parents are in education. They were both teachers. And even as a bookseller, I was teaching. You know, I was curating book collections for people. And so going into education was really very natural. And I went back to school to get my master's and my teaching certificate, and I started teaching high school at LBJ.
Hey, okay.
So your question about, you know, being an educator and being a bookseller, really there's so many parallels. There's so many ways that those are connected and influence the work that I do with the festival. Because when you look at the festival, you know, we've received awards for our children's programming at the festival and just our overall programming from different organizations. And when you look at the way our programming is designed, it's really designed for engagement. It's really designed for people to really enjoy reading, expand their thinking. And I feel blessed to have that background as a bookseller and as an educator to bring that to the festival.
Got it.
And you talked about bringing that to the festival, and I know this year's theme is pretty much what are the Black community thinking and feeling, correct? So I guess let me start off and ask the dumb question: what are Black people thinking and feeling?
Well, okay, so listen. So when we're working on the festival, we're not working on the festival as all knowing. We're working on the festival because we're trying to figure it out too. Like we're, you know, Mark and I, we have our meetings at Starbucks, and we get our favorite drink at Starbucks, and we sit down with all our books and we talk and we try to figure this thing out. You know, some people have asked questions, well, what is Nikki gonna say? Well, what is Jessica Care Moore gonna say? We don't know. We are designing this because we wanna know. We want to know. You know, we're not, you know, some people sit around and say, well, we don't have anything to do. And what we're doing is saying, we want to see more Black authors. And so we're producing this event because we want to see it and we want to hear. So in terms of what are Black people, you know, what are they feeling and what are they saying? Of course, you know, we may have some ideas, but we're real interested to know as well. And really, Black Feeling, Black Talk comes from Nikki Giovanni's initial work that is a seminal work of her poetry that was named Black Feeling, Black Talk. And what we want to do with this theme is we want to know what Black people are feeling in this climate, you know, give space for us to talk about it, and then also talk about how can we be better advocates? What tools do we need for activism? So it's not just about feeling and talking. It's also about, you know, this community, collective, learning from one another, learning from the work, and trying to determine individually and collectively, what can we do?
Got it. So I'm curious, right? So I know the festival is in its 18th year, right? And with that said, it's been a lot of changes that have happened since then. I know social media has become relevant when you think about literature in the digital space, things like that. So with that said, how has the festival evolved to, you know, accommodate a lot of those changes like that?
You know, I think we try to keep the festival fresh, because we try to focus on different genres and themes. So in terms of how the festival has evolved, we're still a one-day festival, and but I don't necessarily, and Mark, you can jump in here. You know, sometimes I feel like I'm so in it that I don't always get a chance to reflect in ways that maybe somebody who's coming to the festival can.
Got it.
So, but I know that you know, I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. You all know that. You know,
Right.
anytime you're producing
Yes.
something, it's a lot of work, and we put in. We put in a lot of work. We hear from authors who come to say it's one of their favorite festivals. It's organized, a lot of good progressive thinking going on, a lot of good vibes, and of course those are very, very high compliments to us. I think one way that we've evolved is that we have really started to focus more making sure we have a great children's program. We when I had the bookstore, I always had like really awesome children's programming. But then when I started the festival, we had children's program, but along the way, I think it just kind of faded, and we may have had one or two things. This was just for a couple years. And I remember the year that Dr. Ona Rampersad came, and he is a noted expert on Langston Hughes. Like, if you want to know anything about Langston Hughes, he is the go-to person. And he came to the festival that year, and I don't have the exact year that he was there. I want to say it was about maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And he was walking around. He was so impressed with the festival and everything. And he looked at me, and he said, "But where are the kids?" And I said, "Well, we had some children's programming." And he says, "But we always want to make sure that whatever we do with this work, that we really invest in children's programming." And so, I've always been dedicated to that, but along the way, it kind of, stumbled a little bit. But now, like, we have all day children's programming. We have a snack bar all day for children. I mean, it's like a book party for kids all day.
Gotcha.
And it is something that I am extremely proud of.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the guests for the festival this year, right? We know it's a major focus on poetry this year, right? How did you guys get to that decision? What made you guys say, poetry, yes, do it this year, absolutely?
Well, so we had written a grant. We were talking earlier, about grants. We had written a grant that let's focus on poetry. I mean, it's just kind of like an intuitive thing. Like, let's focus on poetry. So we started building. We built the grant around poetry, and we had this huge idea that we were going to invite Amanda Gorman. Yes, we're going to do Amanda Gorman, and so we asked the city for a certain amount of money, and they gave us almost twice. Like, we were amazed, right? So we're like feeling real good, and we reach out to Amanda Gorman's people, and the price that they gave us was like, I was like, well, I didn't want to say, well, that's just going to blow the whole budget. I do have some pride, right? So I didn't say that. I said, well, does that include her travel? Just trying to keep it cool.
Right.
And they were like, no, it doesn't include her travel. And she travels with, it doesn't include her travel or her hotel, and she travels with an assistant. And I'm thinking, if she's charging that much and her travel, it's got to be first class and staying at the Four Seasons.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, well, thank you very much. And then, and so, we wrote that in the proposal. And when I do the grant for the city of Austin, I'm going to show them that email that said, look, we tried. And that's how much she charged. And if we had paid that, we wouldn't even have any
It would
money.
just been her. And
Right.
that's it.
And so, but we feel so honored that Nikki Giovanni,
Yes.
81 years old, still in the game.
Yeah.
Like, you know, this is what God meant for it to be.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Right. So I was gonna say, speaking of Nikki Giovanni, right? So, talk about that experience. How did y'all get her, like, you know, pulled in, and what do you think she's gonna bring to the festival?
Oh, man. So, we actually, in collaboration with Austin Community College, when I had the bookstore, Nikki Giovanni came to town for an event with Austin Community College, and we actually hosted a signing for her. So, but that was so many years ago. I still have the pictures of it. She may not remember, but I do.
Yeah.
But, so, you know, once Amanda Gorman was off the table, we started, you know, just kind of brainstorming, and Nikki Giovanni was just really, really, you know, we just really hoped
Right.
that she would accept the invitation.
Right. Yeah.
And when she did, it was just really, really exciting.
I bet.
It was. I mean, it's been really, really a blessing, you know, for it to work out this way.
Yeah. No, speaking of which, just having a situation where she may not remember, but you definitely remember.
Yeah.
She came to Houston Tillotson one year, spoke, and I had the opportunity to do a poem about Tupac Shakur, and she showed me her Thug Life tattoo, and I was like, oh, she's dope.
Yeah.
She's dope.
Yes,
right?
yes,
So,
yes.
like, I totally get it, and like, I will always remember that, right, for the rest of
Yes.
my life. And she probably was another day, another Tuesday, right? So I get it. I totally, completely get it. So let's talk about a little bit about, you know, the literacy and strategy when it comes to promoting reading to our African American youth. How do you guys go about that? What is the plan of action, and what kind of tricks have you found to be successful in your experience?
Well, okay, when you look at our children's program, and I have a little notes here because I want to make sure that I get all of it
Yes,
in
take your
here.
time. Take your time.
So, but we have what we call our AABF Kids Edition, Austin African American Book Festival Kids Edition. And so the day starts with free breakfast, free books. Like we've been collecting all of these books that we're going to let families and children choose, you know, free books for their library, free breakfast. And then we have this awesome storyteller who's going to kick it off, Deborah Orr, and with that is some arts and crafts with that. And then we go straight into Dance a Poem with China Smith and Ballet Afrique. So we've got this kinesthetic thing going.
Right,
you know,
right,
remember,
right.
we're educators, right? So we know,
Right.
you know, you're sitting down, you're doing some arts and crafts, and then you're going straight into this Dance a Poem. Then the festival is a platform for independent authors. And one of the things that we do for children's authors is that we give children's authors an authentic setting to read to children, to see, you know, how this thing is going.
Right.
We also, you know, because we have master storytellers, the indie authors are getting an opportunity to see what a master, because it's not easy. It may look easy to just hold a book up to kids, but it's not. It's
Right,
not.
yeah.
Right.
I mean, because kids are an audience that will let you know,
Oh,
this
yeah.
is boring.
Boring, yeah.
I'm not interested.
They will.
I'm getting ready to move around here. I'm getting ready to act up.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Yep,
so children will let you know.
Right.
And so we give them 2 to 3 minutes, and also it helps them to get an elevator pitch. We don't want them to read the whole book. We just want them to read enough to where a child and a family will want to go buy the book. Because if you read the whole book, then maybe there's no reason to buy it.
Exactly.
And we want them to buy. So that. Then we have Don Tate, who we're moving. We're switching it up because Don Tate is an author and an illustrator. But we know in this group that there are young people who can draw. And so we're having him do an art class so that young readers and illustrators can see what his technique is for drawing. So really, we're just coming at different angles, just keeping it, fresh.
Right.
And we're also really happy that publisher Wade Hudson, now this is really big, publisher Wade Hudson founded Just Us Books. When your dad had a bookstore, he was carrying the ABCs from Just Us Books.
Right.
The
right,
alphabet
right.
ABCs, the Afro bets, the Afro
Ooh,
colors.
God.
Yes. Remember?
That brought back a memory.
Yes. And so that was from Just Us Books with Wade
Okay.
Hudson, Wade and his wife Cheryl Hudson. He's going to be here. A lot of networking opportunities for indie authors who may want to talk to an established publisher. But Wade Hudson and Don Tate, Wade Hudson wrote the story The Day My Dear Voted. Don Tate did the illustrations. Now, that book doesn't come out to July. But Wade Hudson has such pull in the industry, he was able to get Penguin to greenlight us to be able to sell that book at the festival. So we'll be selling that book at the festival for anybody.
Right.
And we have both Wade Hudson and Don Tate there to sign this first edition collectible piece. So we're just, that's the kind of thing as a bookseller, a programmer that you just really get super excited about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we also have a session looking at the poetry of Gwendolyn Brooks.
Okay.
We're also featuring, and this is all for the kids.
Right.
And then we have Terry P. Mitchell's book. She's going to be there talking about her book, The City We Built, and she's going to be giving out free copies of her book. I think she said there are 30 free copies that she's going to be giving out. Then we have the Kona Ice Truck coming, and like I said, we have snacks all day. It's just a book party for kids, and that's how we want it. We don't want kids associating books with punishment. You stop talking, get off that iPad, go over there and
Right.
read. We don't want that. We want kids to associate books with excitement, with curiosity, with wonder, and that's what we're laying the foundation for that. And we have kids who love the festival who come every year, and so that's that. I mean, you can tell I'm excited about it. Because I really am. I'm very excited about it.
Okay. So I know earlier, we had brought up the topic of grants, right? Grants and partnerships. So I was going to say, so with that said, how big of a role does grants and partnerships play in, making the book festival like sustainable and like, something you can do for the long term?
It plays a huge role. I mean, we grants, private donations, that plays a huge role, because what we don't want is we don't want to charge a fee. We don't want to charge a fee. Our festival has been free, and that's how we want it.
Got it.
Because we don't want a barrier to access to this, literature. And we want to be able to bring, the top authors of our generation, and also have a platform for indie authors, and no matter where you are in the process. And so we want it to remain free. So writing grants and the thing too about us is that, all of the volunteers on our committee work. So we're not pulling a stipend from this. So everything you donate to the Austin African American Book Festival goes directly to the Austin African American Book Festival. That's not anything against, nonprofits that have, directors that get paid.
Right.
I'm all for that. I think that's great.
Right.
I'm just saying that when you donate to the Austin African American Book Festival, it's all going to programming and bringing authors and making sure that it's free. So we definitely depend on grants and private donations. As a matter of fact, when the information came out, we had people to donate to us. We didn't solicit these donations, but there were people in the community who, through Amplify Austin, we got word that they had donated because they wanted to support and help underwrite this mission.
Awesome.
And we are tremendously grateful for that.
Awesome. That's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing. So let's talk about future, right? Because, I mean, you know, you guys just mentioned 18 years. I'm pretty certain when you were sitting down in 2006, you were like, okay, let's just get through number one.
Right.
Now you're on 18.
Right.
What do you see this festival looking like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? You know, what are the hopes and goals and dreams for the festival?
That's a great question, but you know, I'm just like right now, I'm just like I got my head down trying to like
Let's get it done.
trying to get to June 29th and just like, you know, and for it to be a great event. You know, I would love to, of course, I want the festival to continue to grow. I want it to continue to be meaningful. We always want it to, resonate with people in the city, and we do have people coming. We have people coming from Houston, Dallas. We have other book festivals coming to our festival, you know, checking out what we're doing. We have people who email us and ask us, you know, about certain things. We have people coming from, you know, Atlanta. We have people coming from Florida. We have people coming from a lot of different places to the festival. So we hope to continue, on the path that we're going. We hope, to keep it innovative. And but in terms of what do we see in 5 years or 10 years, I just retired in May.
Congratulations.
As an educator. I just retired. And so I feel like in retirement, beyond this year, I'll have really more time to work on some infrastructure things that I think we need to work on. So that's a goal. That's a priority. And also, connecting with Kiera to connect with you, to expand the market that we're reaching. Right. Because I'm sure you have a market of people who are probably like, wow, they're in their 18th year. Why did I not know about them? This is a hard city to market in. I mean, you can be on TV, but it is a hard city to reach the masses. And so really, in my, retirement, I'm really looking at ways that we can, strengthen our infrastructure in terms of marketing and making sure that people know that we're here and that they can feel welcome to come and be a part of the dialogue and the critical discourse that we're offering.
Got it. So I was gonna say, so I know you're an educator. Well, you're a recent retired educator. You're also a community leader. I know you've done this festival for 18 plus years now. So with that said, what kind of advice would you have for like the aspiring educator, the aspiring community leader? Like, hypothetically speaking, what kind of advice would you give to the young Dr. Oliphant, like the 25-year-old Dr. Oliphant? What would you say to her?
Yes. Well, I would, it's hard. It's hard work. It is really hard work, and I would just encourage, good follow through. Being committed to doing what you say that you're going to do, operating with integrity. Those are some of the things that I would say. Not being afraid to take risk, but also taking measured risk. I mean, there have been times when people have said, well, you should do this and you should do that. But those sometimes that's not prudent for me. I don't have a comfort level to do that. I feel like I've been gifted with this ability in terms of building a program, in terms of the way things work. I'm extremely organized.
You got your notes, yeah.
Yes,
Right,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes. And when I say that, I want to say that I am an organized person, but that doesn't mean that things can be chaotic. I'm always striving to maintain organization and to do good quality work, but things can get chaotic too. So I do want to say that. I don't want something to happen at the festival and somebody say, well, I thought you said you were organized, because things do happen, right?
Yes.
Right.
So but it's a lot of, it's just really a lot of hard work, and stick to it, and always, and good mentors. Like I had the awesome opportunity to be mentored by Emma Rogers at Black Images in Dallas.
Okay.
I had the awesome opportunity, and I still, Paul Coates, who is Ta-Nehisi Coates' dad, who owns Black Classic Press, is still a mentor. So good mentors are so important. And mentors in the field you're working in, or mentors who may not necessarily be in that field but are wise and honest. I highly recommend that.
Awesome.
Got it.
Awesome.
Got
Let's shift gears a little bit. Dr. Cunningham, let's talk a little bit about your background, about your story, also your academic career through the University of Texas at Austin, and how that shaped your experience.
Oh, well.
Or your studies, excuse me. Yeah.
Well, for me, I grew up in Dallas as an only child, raised by a single mother. I started reading, and kind of my journey with books started when I was in third grade. My librarian, Miss Richardson, handed me a copy of Ramona the Pest by Beverly Cleary, and I never looked back after that. I even lost the library's copy of that book. So, and then I had, Rosalind was mentioning, good mentors. I've had that. Interestingly enough, with librarians, my middle school librarian, who I just reconnected with on Facebook, Dr. Roach, and just good teachers. I was really blessed to have good educators and good teachers. Went to the Marine Corps, then went to college, and but I also, before I started teaching college students, started with in K-12. So I've taught every level. I've taught elementary school, I've taught middle school, high school for the most, and then college students. And so I got my PhD from UT, and I did my graduate work in graduate teaching there. But haven't worked there, outside of that space or whatever. But I was an adjunct at ACC for 8-9 years, and I got on full time now. So
Got it. So I know, doing some research on you, right? I know you've done work on Spike Lee's films, John Singleton's films, right? So with that said, talk about those projects and how those contribute to the field of media studies.
Well, I finished my book on John Singleton.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
And so I'm in the process of kind of doing some maneuvering with publishers right now. So it's done. I wrote about his South Central set films, his self-proclaimed Hood trilogy, Boys in the Hood, Poetic Justice, and Baby Boy. And there's really not a comprehensive work on John Singleton's films. There's a lot of articles on Boys in the Hood, but really nothing on Poetic Justice and Baby Boy. So my book will be, I'm kind of like informally seen in the field as like the John Singleton dude. Like people kind of know. Okay. And I've written for The Atlantic about John Singleton when he passed. I wrote about Poetic Justice in The Atlantic. And, like I say, you mentioned Spike Lee. I've written an article about Ice-T on Law and Order Special Victims Unit. And I've written some other stuff as well too. An article on Black popular culture in the Cinema Journal and some more things. But all of those things, have been just me, really wanting to put things that I'm interested in, and putting those things out there. I remember initially when I was writing my dissertation, kind of having some apprehension about writing about John Singleton because one of the things, the kind of whole respectability politics thing,
right? Yeah,
and kind of worrying about and my mentor at the time, my dissertation chair, Craig Watkins, said to me, Mark, no matter what you write about, you're always going to be the black professor that writes about this. So write what you want to write.
Yeah.
And so I'd say, okay, well, fine, I'll write about John Singleton.
Right.
And interestingly enough, though, that fear that I had came up actually.
Oh, wow.
Something I mentioned in my book at a conference. I'm part of a cinema media studies society, and they have a yearly conference. And I went to the conference and I was still in graduate school, so I'm still writing my dissertation.
Okay.
This young brother, came up to me and asked me, did I think movies like Baby Boy in particular, how is that gonna advance the race and things like that? And I was like, what? You know, and kind of, you know, kind of with that verse. But I just think it's just very, very, very important, right? You know, to kind of make sure that movies like that, because they mean so much to people who are black. You know, those movies, you know, and these things go beyond, you know, critically acclaimed, what critics think. You know, it goes beyond those things. There are people who watch Baby Boy. My cousin Heather, my late cousin Heather, you know, did hair and went to cosmetology school. And a lot of that had to do with justice. And she repeatedly wore out a video cassette. Right. You know, she watched it all the time.
Yeah.
And like those kinds of things, you know, kind of resonate. I even think about now in John Singleton's death and how influential, right, what Singleton has done has been on popular culture. So I think about, for example, with Poetic Justice, and then of course, you know, Kendrick and Drake doing, you know, the Poetic Justice song on Good Kid, Mad City. And then I think about on Mr. Morale, the song that he does with Taylor Page, and they go back and forth. And it's reminiscent, right? Of they're going, you know, that
was a hard listen.
And you know, these are the kind of things I write about in my book or whatever. Kind of talk about that, and then there's more. I mean, there's, you know, you go to Target and there's like 50-11 Boys in the Hood shirts. You know, but it's mostly Boys in the Hood. And so I want to put Poetic and Baby Boy on the map in a particular way, because Baby Boy is the film John Singleton said he wanted to most be remembered for.
Yes. So out of those three, which one is your favorite?
Boys in the Hood is always my favorite. Boys in the Hood, you know, there are 4 things at the age of 21 that changed my life. I read my first Toni Morrison novel. Rosalind Oliphant, Toni Morrison. Toni Morrison is my favorite author. It's almost cliche to say that now. Toni Morrison is everybody's favorite author. Almost, it seems, but I read Song of Solomon, Ice Cube's Death Certificate CD, the autobiography of Malcolm X, and Boys in the Hood. Those things all happened to me in a succession of time when I was 21, and I absolutely am able to pinpoint the shift in my life where I really came into myself as a black man. And so Boys in the Hood,
that's it,
did that for me.
Got it. So I'm curious, right? So I know we're talking about John Singleton's film specifically, right? So how do you see the intersection of sex, gender, and narrative playing out in his films?
Well, I mean, that's the basis of my book. Actually, is talking about those things. Certainly race, right? Certainly environment, place has a lot to do with that. The South Central setting, particularly of South Central of you know, the 80s and the 90s with the crack epidemic and everything. Something that's John Singleton, before he passed, I think beautifully outlines in the TV show Snowfall. You know, and then, you know, in terms of gender, I mean, some of the more kind of problematic things, and this is something Spike had to, you know, deals with, has certainly dealt with in his career. And a lot of black male filmmakers have this issue about the way women get depicted. And I think there is this way, right, that those things don't get complicated. That there's this way of this kind of patriarchal, kind of, you know, patriarchy knows no racial bounds. And so those things find themselves in these films, in the way in which, you know, having to kind of, you know, dismantle, I guess, in a sense, analytically, the way John kind of depicts that, and how some of that kind of maybe mirrored his own life. Right, and narrative, of course, right, John Singleton, him training as a screenwriter, right, and really writing to protect his vision, and that was my attraction. I trained as a screenwriter in film school. That's my attraction, right, because of the you know, the connection to literature, right? And literature is important to me. Movies are important to me. And like, what was the best way to marry those things together? And screenwriting was the best way to do that. And when I found John, and he's only child, you know, raised in a single parent home, you know, his dad, first his mom, then his dad, I saw so much of myself, and then I kind of struck out to want to do the same thing for my neighborhood back home in Dallas and Oak Cliff. But, you know, I went to film school in the dark ages before all the technology came about. So, and wasn't nobody gonna take no second mortgage out for me to make a movie. So,
Gotcha.
So can you tell us a little bit more about the importance of Black popular culture that is shaping social narratives and perceptions in movies and film?
well, you know, Black popular. I mean, that's one of the things I write about in this essay that I did for the Cinema Journal called "No Getting Around the Black." And there's this way, right? I'm looking at your shirt about being unapologetic, right? You know, and I think there's this way, right, in popular culture spaces in a lot of ways that Black people, Black culture, like we have apologized for certain things. We've like, oh, don't do this. We don't want to be too Black.
Right.
You don't want to do this. You don't want. My mom used to tell me because she was worried about me keeping my job. Don't teach too many Black movies because you don't want them people saying nothing. You know, like you.
Right.
You know that kind of, you know, or making sure you know that you're not blacking up the place. And all that. And there's this way, and then this. But in terms of popular cultural space, you think about popular culture, right? It's kind of a case like they don't know what's good until we tell them. You know, like so much in popular culture spaces are other people, other groups of people, other racial groups emulating what we've done, and what we've started, and what we've pioneered, and what we've charted. What you know, whether that be hairstyles, where you know, whether it be you know, clothing, film, music, books, right? All of those things, right, that we have, you know, kind of pioneered, and then somebody else comes on that doesn't look like us. They come along and they get the credit for it. And so I just think it's so crucial for us to keep doing what we're doing, and to make sure that we are not apologizing for who we are, for our expression, creative self and otherwise, and being who we are, and you know.
Loving that.
Got it. So I was gonna say, so let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk about your career as an educator. Right. So I know you have all this research you've done, all this expertise, right? So how do you incorporate that into, you know, your lessons or you know, your teaching at ACC?
Man, so you know, teaching. It's really interesting because I teach film and media studies, and I don't get to teach a lot of Black students. Really? Because I think, I'm always happy to see all of my students, of course, right? But when I get some Black students in a film class, it's like, oh my God,
what are you doing?
Yeah, you look like me.
Like, where you been? Like, you know, because they don't, and I think a lot of it has to do with how I think a lot of times Black parents don't know what to do with a creative child.
That's true.
Right? You know, because wanting to be a dancer or actor, whatever, those things are not tangible in a sense, right? But I want to be a doctor. Oh, I can see that. Right. You know, lawyer, I can see engineer. They see an end to that. Right. So it's difficult, right? And I certainly express some of that, but I've also been very fortunate that even maybe in not understanding, my family has been very, very supportive of my creative endeavors. So I've been really blessed with that. My mother, who passed 4 years ago, like my mom, she didn't get a lot of stuff, but she taught me some of my first lessons, right? I was writing stories. I started writing stories after I, you know, really got into reading. And I was writing stories that Beverly Cleary, I was using her characters. The mama said, boy, they're going to throw you in jail for that. You got to write your own people. So then I started. So I used the little cousin I have, my baby cousin, Chrissy, and I started writing stories about her and I kind of emulating that same thing. But all of that experience comes out in my lesson, because those are the things that make it when I sit down to do my syllabus and I think about what movies I want my students to watch, and I think about what, you know, and I have this way, right? My experience as an educator allows me, and it's something, you know, if I may toot my own horn, I feel I'm very good at, is being able to balance what I think they need to know and what I think will interest them. And my students, they always say, like, man, Dr. C, I didn't know that movie even existed. Right. I didn't even know I would like that. Right. Whatever this, that, you know, I teach an adaptation class, and we read the stories and read, you know, short novels, and we watch the films that are made out of them, and then they pick a short story of their own, and they have to adapt it into a screenplay. And so it's just been really, my experience as an educator has served me so well, and particularly in the way that I deal with young people. I mean, I forget, I'll be 54 in August, and I forget that because I'm with these kids so much, and we like a lot of the same things, and we do a lot of this, and I can relate to them. That's kind of one of the things about being Gen X is that you have a foot in that old world, but you also got a foot in this new world, and then I feel 54 right here in the
back, lower back, I got you.
But other than that, I don't. But I think that being an educator, that is part of that as well too. It really does. I mean, it's cliche to say, right? It keeps you young, but it really does. It really does. And it also helps me to be in tune with the things that they like. I'm able to stick up for them in ways, right? But I'm also able to take them to task in ways they need to be taken to task because of my experience and stuff. So I don't know. I kind of like.
We taught at LBJ together.
Oh, really?
Okay. We did a stint at LBJ together. And high school is a really wonderful thing. Like when I was teaching high school, I knew rappers, underground rappers. My family was like, what are you talking about? Like I was going home. I was like, they were like, I was like, I knew all of the pop culture. And like Mark, I've had the opportunity to work on all levels. So I worked as a high school teacher. I was an assistant principal in elementary school, and I retired from a middle school doing some programming there. But I will say, when I taught high school, I was definitely more immersed in pop culture when I taught high school.
That makes sense.
I was even eating Takis.
Oh no!
Shit like that. What
am I doing?
I was like, that kid, man, them kids had me. They was bringing me breakfast taco. They had me up on all this. My Hispanic students' mamas was like fattening me up. They was making me empanadas and inviting me to dinner and say, "Take this with you." I was like,
and so we met at my bookstore. He came in. That's how, and in the 90s, and a lifetime friendship was formed. And we've been reading books and talking about books and planning festivals.
Put out of Starbucks.
And but being
we laughed
too loud.
real loud.
So that's
we being
nice.
We being nice now.
Oh no, go for
it.
But
no, you don't want that. Right. We'll blow somebody ear out. You don't want us to act up.
So tell me, I'm listening and hearing about the stories about being an educator, teaching, providing experiences to the youth. And I know that's a plethora of time and a plethora of students, right? Give me a student that you'll always remember that impacted you, that you like, yes, this one, this boy or this young lady, she is gonna be something, and I know it.
Jeez, I have so many like that.
I believe.
I'm gonna go first.
Okay.
Because I'm in a full circle moment right now. So, I want to say it was about 2006. Kiera Keys was in my class.
Okay.
She was in my class, and she was, a smart young lady. And everywhere I go, I find a way to start a book club. So I had at LBJ, they had this. I don't know, Mark. There was a conference room we used to eat in, and there was a book room that was locked. And I was like looking through there. I was like, look at they have a copy of some Richard Wright in there, and they have some Gordon Parks in there, Choice of Weapons. And they were like, we can ready to throw all those books away. I was like, hold on. So I went in there and I cleaned that book room up and organized everything. And they said, you can have all the books you want. So I got all the black books, took them in my room, and I started the Afrocentric Book Club. And Kiera was in that club, and she was also in my class. And I taught a communication class, communication skills, public speaking, debate. It was like a survey class with all those different units. Fast forward to today, Kiera is working in public relations, and I'm contracting with her, and she's saying, okay, so we need to talk about your talking points, and we need to go over this. So in essence, the teacher has become the student. And it is a beautiful thing. I'm a lifelong learner. So I'm I'm not that one that says, wait a minute. No, I'm like, help me.
You're excited because
Yes, I'm excited. I am proud. This is a proud teacher moment for me. So when you ask about a student, I'm going to mention that student. There are definitely other students because I have other students who I see in this community doing some really, really wonderful things. They were smart in high school, and I am not surprised by their accomplishments and their achievements. Yes. So I'm gonna put that's the student that I'm going to say today. But I do have others that I'm very, very proud of who are doing some really, really awesome things in this community and around the country.
For me, there are two I'll pinpoint, and teachers. I mean, I have so many of them, man. But my very first class, and I taught elementary school, taught fourth grade. There's a student in the class named Daryl, and Daryl is now divorced. Is a chiropractor, has a beautiful daughter in his 30s, and we still talk to this day. And he and I were very, very close. I mean, he was in my class, and it was almost. I mean, I had to work real hard to make it look like I wasn't playing favorites because he and I were very close, and we have remained such. And even when I don't talk to him, you know, he knows how much I love him and how much I care about him. And he recently went to a basketball game back home in Dallas, and he didn't even tell me he was doing this. He had a sweatshirt on, and it had my picture on it.
Oh, wow. And
he was talking about how there was another student that who's his best friend, Ebony. She has a T-shirt shop, and they did a series of heroes in Arlington, which is where I taught. And I was one of them. And Daryl wore that and wrote this beautiful thing on Facebook. And you know, now I'm old, I cry. Everything made me cry. and I did it. That just broke me up, man. And then I have another student I taught at LBJ. Her name is Dejan, she's my daughter, and she calls me Papa. But she and I are incredibly close. And she was in the senior class that I taught Beloved to, and I taught For Colored Girls, and among other things. And so many. That was such a good class. That's one of my favorite classes. And she and I just built a relationship from there. And I just talked to her today. We talk all the time and hang out and call each other. And she's married now, and her husband is like a son to me. He called me Pop, and you know, So those are two, and there's so many. There's so many. I mean, I could name, but
well, big shout out to Keys, Dejan, and Daryl. Especially Keys for helping us get this conversation going.
But you know, I just want to say this too, that not only as an educator, but also as a bookseller, when I had the bookstore in the 90s, what's really, really interesting to me is kids who came to the bookstore bring their kids to the festival and have all of these wonderful memories. And I'm remembering them when they were the age of the kids that they have. So I mean, I'm not saying it makes me a bookseller grandmother. I'm not saying that. I'm gonna stick with the auntie. I'm gonna be the aunt.
I always tell my students I'm old enough to be an older brother from their father's first marriage.
There we go.
I don't think it's working though, because I think I'm in pawpaw territory. I don't want to be. But you know, I'm like, what?
Yes.
Middle age.
Good Lord.
Right. So I'm curious. I have a question for the both of y'all. Right. So how do the both of y'all think that festivals and academic institutions could potentially collaborate to, you know, enhance cultural literacy, and community engagement?
Well, I'll jump in. One grant that we received is through Humanities Texas, and they want academics connecting with the community, which is exactly what we're doing. So, for example, one of the programs that we have is the Furious Flower Poetry Center, which was founded at James Madison University. And Furious Flower is a tribute to Gwendolyn Brooks, because when Gwendolyn Brooks won the Pulitzer and she tried to get into the academy because she didn't have the credentials that the academy wanted, she was dismissed. And so a group of academics created this Furious Flower Poetry Center in honor of her, to pay tribute to her work, and it's housed at James Madison University. Well, we have been able to work with them. They are sending someone here because they have a free syllabus for teachers on how to incorporate Black poetry into the curriculum. So when you talk about merging academics with the festival, we are doing that. And that is something that we are working on always, so many different levels of how do we expand our thinking? How do we promote positivity in the community? How do we foster social activism? Those are things that we're always thinking about when we're programming.
And the festival does a really, really good job of putting, academics on the dais, so to speak. I mean, myself as an academic, there's the academic that wrote the book on the great poet Etheridge Knight. There have been so many people that have come to the Dr. Rampersad. I mean, these are all people who are very much so, even though they're authors, are very much so engaged in the academic space. And Rosalind always does a really good job of making a space for that. It's not just like, here's the best-selling New York Times, but it's that, and it's the poet laureate of so-and-so. It's the professor of so-and-so at this university. So to me, it always gives. I don't know, I always feel like the festival has a foot in both worlds, the popular world and also the more kind of academic scholarly world, and everybody gets the benefit of that. And it's one of the things too that when you look at the festival, like, everybody is just as happy to be in either of those spaces, and people really enjoy and get a lot from those spaces. So
that makes sense. So what role does this event in particular, the festival, have on kind of reshaping the narrative when it comes to African Americans focusing on books? As you said, I think you mentioned it earlier, we want books to be a place where wonder starts, enjoyment, pleasure, rather than it's a disciplinary or a punishment. Right. So where does that festival lie, and how does that push that narrative to a different direction?
Let me start.
Yeah.
Look, Rosalind, I got to say this. Rosalind, when you talk about like the community and how those things fit, the community really has a tremendous support and a tremendous, I'm using the word I want to use, but Rosalind being at the forefront of this is very, very important, because Rosalind, one of the things that doesn't get talked about, I think, where Rosalind is concerned, and there's a lot of great things to mention, but Rosalind knows her stuff. And Rosalind knows her craft. And Rosalind knows books. And so she knows what to recommend, and she knows, what to tell, she knows what to tell you to read and what not to read, or maybe you might not like that one, or whatever. She knows to tell you all of those things. And when you have somebody in the community who stands at the forefront, right, with that type of knowledge and that type of expertise, influencing a community, that becomes very, very important. Because I think if somebody else, right, if there was somebody else maybe who wasn't as knowledgeable as she is, leading this festival, I think it would have a different flavor. I honestly do. But I think it becomes very, very important that there is somebody out here who's leading this space and has that type of background.
Take your flowers.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I think there's another boiling question that I have to ask, because we keep playing and talking about it. Tell me your favorite books.
Yeah, see, that's a hard question.
Sure is.
Like, that's a really hard question, but when for a long time, I would have to say I would go with a favorite author.
Okay.
Because when I think about my collection, and I think about, if I just had to pick one or two, I would just be distraught, because there are so many books I go back to.
I got you.
But Zora Neale Hurston is one of my favorite authors. Okay. And Zora Neale Hurston, just the way that she just the way that she told stories, and she told stories. She wrote stories during a time when people like Richard Wright and others wanted her to elevate her work, and it wasn't that her work wasn't elevated, but they just felt like her subject matter was not as serious. But she was writing about everyday Black people in a very brilliant, poetic way. And so she is one of my favorite authors. And in my collection, I have almost all of her novels and short stories and books that have been written by her. Books that have written about her, I should say. So I would have to answer in that way. Okay. That she is. I also like Howard Thurman. I love his work. I love W.E.B. Du Bois. I could just sit down in my favorite chair and read his work. So I have a lot of favorite authors who mean so much to me.
Well, I told you, Malcolm X, autobiography of Malcolm X, but, and I'm like Rosalind too, there's so many, Toni Morrison is my absolute favorite author of all time. But I also really love Percival Everett, who wrote Erasure, with the movie American Fiction is based on. And there have been so many, I'm like Rosalind, so many books I love. Rosalind recommended me Langston Hughes' short stories, The Ways of White Folks, which is brilliant. But there is probably like no book more important to me than Beloved by Toni Morrison. And this is me, somebody like, I love, I don't know about hook or crook, I love all her books, right? but Beloved, just, I can quote it. I read it, and Toni Morrison, I can read her language and read it, and it makes me tear up. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. And I know, like, she's a tough author for some people. Some people can't read. My mom tried to read Beloved back in the day. I remember, and my mom, she said, "Oh, Lord, I lost my page." And she went, "No, I didn't lose my page. I don't know what she's talking about." And a lot of people feel that way about Toni Morrison. But it just, man, but it's a sister I worked with at a bookstore, and I worked at a bookstore I think it was 91 or whatever, 91, whatever. I worked in the bookstore, and she introduced The Bluest Eye. That's the first one I read. She said Song of Song, I read Bluest Eye. And I was in the Marine Corps, and I remember I finished Song of Solomon on my first 2-week reserve thing. And then the second time I went, I took The Bluest Eye with me. And me and Sergeant Carroll were reading that book at the same time. Yeah. So when it was time for me to go to duty, he would read, and then when it was his time to go to duty, I would read. So I had the brothers in the Corps reading Toni Morrison. So,
there we go.
That's the thing. That's the thing. When you like reading, you can't. When you're just so, it's just. Passionate about it, like just really. And for years, as a little girl, I read books that I didn't see me. I didn't see me. I didn't hear me, but I liked to read. And my mom read to me, and I was always in the library. The librarians in my neighborhood and in my school, they all knew me because I loved to read. I was winning awards for reading the most books, in the summer library reading. But then when I read a Black book and a Black poem, it was like, whoa. Right. And I've been, ever since. And that's my why. Like, I'm always trying to create access for others. We're going to be giving away free books, some great free books to young people to build their libraries at the festival because, it's a wonderful thing to see yourself in a book, to hear yourself. And that's really important.
That's so true. Because when I was coming up, like I told you, it's Beverly Cleary, like those white kids, like Judy Blume was white. It was finally like Iggy's House. She did with race in that book, but still, like it was cool. But man, I saw M.C. Higgins the Great and The Planet of Junior Brown by Virginia Hamilton, and I said, they write books about Black folks.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because like now I think these kids like got it good in terms of like representation. Yeah. But back in the day, we didn't have it like that. Like we had, but like I say, Virginia Hamilton, I was like,
Yeah.
And Zealy. Remember, I was like, what?
I remember when I first read Langston Hughes, and I was like, oh my goodness! Like I was like, I mean, so yeah.
Mother to Son. How many times did we recite? Like every time you got on program,
Yeah.
you had somebody do Mother to Son.
Yeah.
Right. Well, son, I
tell
tell you. And life for me ain't been no crystal stair.
Yeah.
Please. Anytime you got on program, they gave you a Langston Hughes poem.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, and God's trombones at church.
Oh yeah. James Weldon Johnson. Yes. So yes.
Yeah, but anyway.
I was gonna say, so before we wrap up, let's go ahead and hit you with the final question of the night, right? So we ask every guest on the show this question before we wrap up. Now, you got a chance to be on the podcast, had good conversation, good vibes. Now, with that said though, who do you think would be a good guest on the show? Now, before you answer, it has to be somebody in your Rolodex, in your phone, in your contacts. You can be like, hey, I came on the 2-hour lunch break. I had a great time with those guys. Y'all need to go, talk to them. Who would that person or people be?
Okay.
Me, when I finish my book, I come back.
Come on back. Hey,
run it
he
back.
said me.
Let's run it back.
That's yeah.
I like it.
Let's
I like
run that
it.
back.
When I finish,
I
that's
like
it. Me. That's what I'm gonna say.
Okay.
There we go.
So I would say, listen. When I first started my bookstore, I became friends with this chick who had an art gallery. Deborah Roberts, who is now an international art sensation. Austin based, born in Austin, based in Austin, but work, Spike Lee, Beyonce, you
Alicia
name it.
Keys.
Alicia Keys, they all have her
big
work.
time.
And I would recommend her. I think it would be great. For
I'm
her.
cracking her laughing.
We love
Yes.
it. We love
Yes.
it.
Yeah, let's line that up.
We gonna set that up.
Yes.
Now I feel bad because I ain't say nobody good.
No, you
Man,
said
I know you
somebody
right.
good.
It's all right.
No, you did.
That's
We
like-
can't wait.
That's what he said. Deborah, I was like,
Exactly.
So where can everybody find you? Social media,
Websites.
email, websites. What
Okay,
have you?
so for the Austin African American Book Festival, it's AAABookFest.org. Or you can Google Austin African American Book Festival and our website will come up. On Instagram, we are ATX, AA Book Fest. And so those are, and then you can look for us, Austin African American Book Festival, on Facebook. But if you go to our website, all of our, social media tags are there. But that's how you can find us. The complete schedule for the festival is there. And we do hope that you all will join us at the festival and come check out, come stay the whole day, come for a particular session, but come check us out.
Bring the babies.
Yes. Bring your kiddos. Yes.
Instagram is Dr. Ham, DOCTAHAM. On Twitter is Monsieur Jambon,
Okay.
Mr. Ham in French.
There we go.
JAMBON.
Extra.
Right.
And then Facebook is just my name, Mark Cunningham. That's it. I don't have TikTok. I don't need them problems with my program.
There we go.
Yeah.
That wraps up this edition of the 2-Hour Lunch Break Podcast. Once again, shout out to Dr. Oliphant and Dr. Cunningham for taking the time out to kick it with us. Shout out to our production behind the boards. You can find them at Cafe Yoda on Instagram. Episodes of the 2-Hour Lunch Break can be found on all streaming platforms. You can find us on Instagram at 2HLB Pod and on X at the 2-Hour Lunch. Thank you for tuning in. We out.
Peace.
Hey.
Not the Yaphet Kodo.
And it's coming home to Texas. It's coming home all the way to Austin, Texas, baby.